Welcome to The Exchange. I'm Faisal Karmali. Today we're sitting down at Village Ice Cream with the owners of this building under the company Round Square. Afshin and Alkarim Devani are here with me to talk about their journey, the way they build partnerships with other businesses, and how they run their business as a family. Before we get started, just a reminder to subscribe to this channel for all the latest updates and more advice for business owners. Coming up on this episode.
It's not sexy and it's hard as fuck.
Like, hey, we're gonna foreclose on you if you don't finish this home.
Two brothers. I can only imagine with my older sister, she'd probably pull rank on me all the time.
This is gonna be one of the most active buildings from a pedestrian-human collision perspective.
Who's most organized?
No entrepreneur does it by themselves.
Afshin, we'll start with you. Give me your 30-second elevator pitch.
Yeah, I think with Round Square, we build in established communities in the inner city. And our big focus is connecting to our customer, from the front end to an investor, all the way to a tenant, and how we can put that all together.
Mine's probably not gonna be as good because I'm working on a new tech startup with some guys from Skip the Dishes, and it's really focused around creating better experiences for tenants and renters. And I think we're trying to bring parity back to that relationship and deliver better experiences to renters and see how we can improve their overall quality of lives.
Give me one example of a better experience for a renter.
So just taking your credit with you. So every time you pay rent, you don't get credit. So how do we give renters the ability to take their credit and take their data with them when they pay rent? So, you move from one landlord to the next, you want to have the ability to say, look, I was great with that guy. You don't have to ask anybody, here's my kind of renter passport.
23 years in the business, they've got their elevator pitches down packed and they know who they want to serve. So let's get started. The last time I actually saw these two individuals together with me was over 30 years ago. We were all playing hockey together. We all were, horsing around, little kids. And now I get to see you guys building such a great business, multiple businesses, impacting multiple lives. So I want to thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having us, man. Super excited.
So Round Square just didn't start as Round Square. There's a story before that. Let's start from the beginning. How the heck did you get into this business, and how did we start Round Square?
Basically how it started, again, I'd take it back to kind of our family and our community, the Islamic community. Looking at people and looking up to people, what they were doing in the community, and people who have amassed some wealth and were successful, always had real estate in their portfolio. So question was, how do I do that? How do I get into that? I was working for a telecom company back, 20 plus years ago. And back then, internet data connections were coming in fairly heavily, and we were paid well to close the deal. So I used some of that money to buy a revenue property, and there's 3 or 4 of us in the company said, hey, let's put our money together, buy a property. We found an agent, bought a property in Ross Carrick. So we renovated it. After 3 months, we put it back on the market. We made like 120 grand. Don't remember the exact numbers. We were like, wow, that was easy. And interesting enough, the agent we used, he was quite entrepreneurial. So he was like, hey, I can buy the Remax office we're at. Are you interested? So we bought the business. I think we were at 60 or 69 agents, and there was myself and 3 others and the agent. We bought the business. Through that process, I think it was maybe a year or 2, the agent came back to us and said, hey, I want to start a building company. Are you guys interested? And we were like, oh yeah, hey, great, let's do it. Again, being 20s, cash wasn't there. So I went to moms and uncles and dads and raised some money, and we built our first duplex in South Calgary. And I think it was on 27th Avenue. Went through that process, it was amazing. Getting an old home, taking it to 2 infills, we were like, holy, that's really cool. However, got the numbers from that project, and it was like we made $1,000 a unit. And I'm like, how is that possible when we sold these duplexes for $500 a side? How do we make $1,000? Not knowing financing, didn't go through school to do financing. I go through some of the numbers and I'm like, why do we have a car allowance and meals and entertainment and flights? I'm like, where are you going to sell 2 duplexes in South Calgary? It doesn't make sense. I get no response. I get a letter from a lawyer saying your partner wants to buy you out of these businesses. And I was like taken aback big time, like what happened here? Right then and there, I thought there's something going on. Luckily, didn't know legal stuff, but I had a shotgun clause. So I enacted the shotgun clause to buy the Remax business, which he was shocked, my partner who initiated that clause. However, I didn't have my license. So I built some relationships in the Remax business with an agent, and I approached him and said, hey, can you be the brokerage of this business? Because I don't have my license. I'm 20. These agents, our average agent's age was like 45 plus. They're not gonna listen to me. So the partner was like, yeah, absolutely. The agent, but I'd like to be a partner as well. So I said, great, let's do this. So he became my partner. Today we're about 160 agents, and that journey has been great. Throughout that journey, I still really enjoyed building homes. And I was like, how do I get into this and do it myself? Taking risks, learned that from my mom and dad, from their journey from India to Africa to Canada. Was like, hey, we're gonna do the same, we're gonna grind this out. And we started Devani Homes. And Devani Homes, we went from one house to 14 homes to some big estate homes in Elbow Valley, Aspen Estates, Wentworth, and did some big $1 million plus homes. 2008, the financial crisis comes and hits us pretty hard. And I mean really hard, because we had about 5 or 6 spec homes that were well over $1 million. And we were like, oh my God, we had banks trying to foreclose on us. And I was like, how do we pivot here? How do we get out of this? So we kind of stopped. Waited a year, paid the mortgage payments, had RBC say, hey, we're gonna foreclose on you if you don't finish this home. I went back, tried this out, and I said, you try to take me to court in small business and foreclose on me. Wow. While I'm making the payments, I don't think any judge is gonna let you foreclose on me, because yes, maybe I'm not following the terms of the mortgage, but we're in an unprecedented time. Yeah. And I'm getting offers of like $800,000 to buy these homes, and our cost is $1.1 million. Yeah. So like, what am I gonna do? So we buttoned up the exteriors, paid the mortgage payments, and got through it. We were able to sell the homes and kind of come out with like a 1 or 2% profit. Nobody lost money. One of my mentors said, hey, in a recession, if you don't lose money, you're making money. That's right. That kind of motivated us quite a bit. Al and I sat down, because he was part of Devani Homes and working together. We're like, how do we avoid this next time? We looked into the inner city. Because when we looked at real estate, when there is a slowdown, it kind of goes from the outskirts in, then it goes from $1 million in. So we said, how do we avoid that? So we came into the inner city and we started Beyond Homes, doing duplexes.
So were both of you on board with this whole real estate thing from the beginning? Like, you're younger than him by a few years, right? So he's in his 20s.
When you said we were playing hockey, I was like, I was only 7, man. Like, I was watching, I wasn't playing. No, I was sitting on the sideline. I went to university. Like, I graduated from the UC with my marketing degree from Haskell. So when Afshin was doing all that, I was working with him part-time, and then I took kind of a bit of a gap semester where I worked the whole kind of conveyancing department. So I was watching the whole time from the sidelines, but no one in my immediate family had been to post-secondary education. Both of my parents were, not even high school kind of educated. And so one of my real goals was to do that, just to prove that, our family could do that if we wanted to. And I would tell you, like, I hated university. It was the worst experience ever for me, partly because I got to see like my family as entrepreneurs always hustling. So both of my brothers were hustling. My mom, she was a caterer, started from our kitchen in our house to building an addition kitchen, and she was a hustler. Like, my mom taught me everything I know about business. And so, going to school every day, writing exams and trying to understand this long game just never really resonated. But it was like, I was a goal that I had put my mind to that I wanted to do. And so the moment that I graduated, I said, Afshin, like, let me in and let's figure out how to do something different. And so came on with Beyond Homes and really steered that ship and loved it, just because my passion was, marketing. I loved fashion, and I got to dabble in a bunch of different things. And, I would say for me, the turning point was when I met Majida, my wife, who was an architect, and really schooled me about like, sure, you can build and flip and turn money, and that's all great, which was, 100% what I wanted when I was younger. But when you start to learn, about design and the intricacies of how people respond to space, and, for me, that passion of human behavior, planning, urban design has really changed my trajectory and the things that I really love and continue to be a student of, and not having any background of it. And so very fortunate to be here and be given that opportunity. And those collisions and those random kind of intersection points were super critical for where we are today.
Okay, let's see what you guys think about each other. I'm going to call out your name and I'm going to ask you the question, then you tell me what you think. Or in fact, how about we do it this way? How about you guys point to yourself or the other person? Okay, if you believe that's the answer, okay? Who's most organized?
I gotta say him, not me. I can tell you that.
No one's putting their hand up on that one. Who's more creative?
Yeah.
You're saying it?
Yeah,
All right.
100%. Yeah.
Better at managing finances?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not putting your hand up, you're gonna just nod, right? Who's more practical?
Well, I think in certain aspects, both of us, but I'm usually the one, hey, slow down here. We gotta look at some of this
There
stuff.
we go. Who's more academic?
Oh, yeah.
He reads more than I do now, actually, too. So he's really focused on that. Afshin's done an exceptional job at learning about previous examples from previous great leaders.
Who's better at building relationships?
Tough.
Yeah.
I think
we're almost equal there, right?
Yeah.
Who makes decisions faster?
Yeah, for sure.
Who tends to have the final call?
I would say him.
Who changes their mind most often?
Yeah,
Probably.
yeah.
Who has a longer plan for the future?
Both.
Yeah, I think now where we're at today,
Yeah.
the future is so much like about the long term.
Well, it's long haul now.
Before it was like, hey, we got to get it done. We got to do this. Let's get it done for the now. And now when I look at today, what I'm trying to do is to build a great enduring business, life, relationships. Because it's been hard. We don't have a lot of personal relationships because we've been so focused on the business.
Yeah.
Where did Round Square come from and how did you get that name?
So from there, again, from Beyond Homes, we got to a point where these infills were reaching $1 million again. And we're like, hey, this is getting out of reach again. It wasn't why we wanted to do this and how we wanted to get there and how do we pivot again? And we went through an experience of taking a corner lot, and that was Al championing that, and trying to get that to a row of townhouses. And one of the reasons we wanted to do that, we could densify the land, which would mean then we could have more units on a piece of a 50-foot lot, which would then mean it would bring the cost down to sell and be able to kind of hit a bigger market. And if the market changed on us, which in Calgary, we're a boom bust economy, right? So we knew it was going to come, just didn't know when. You kind of spread that risk throughout instead of trying to put all your eggs in one basket with one home, we were able to do 4. And we went through to create a new model, a new company that does only multifamily, and that was Round Square. That name came from a marketing company here in Calgary, which I think was it called Cult? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ryan Gill.
It was Ryan's company, but Owen Reeder was the guy who we went in and seen. It was part of their small business team. And Owen asked me the first day we walked in, he's like, is there any flexibility on the name? And I'm like, no, there's no flexibility on the name at all. And at the time, I think we called it 9 Squares. It was because there was 9 squares and Beyond Homes and we wanted a way to pay homage to it. Really no practical meaning and no correlation. And they built everything as 9 squares because I was like, no, I'm not changing that. And so I kind of was set in my ways. And he called me late at night on the day before they were going to give us our final deck with all of our deliverables. He goes, I know you said the name was like off limits, but after talking to you guys and getting to know you, I really think I have a better name. And I'm like, I just don't think you could. And he's like, okay, well, what about Round Square? And I'm like, what about it? And he's like, well, what do you think about it? I'm like, oh man, that's actually really cool. And he goes, what sold me and Afshin on it was he talked about Steve Jobs and how, you can't fit a square peg into a round hole. And it kind of really described the ethos of exactly what we talked about is we recognize there's many different walks of life, different types of people, and rather than trying to force them to assimilate to, what we believe is the right thing, let's let them all exist. Let's let the circles and the squares be who they want to be. And so when we kind of tied it all together, it was just it was a slam dunk.
Your business, like many others, are involved or touch other businesses. We're in one of them right now. We're in Village Ice Cream, and this location is within your location. How did you decide to partner with these other businesses?
When we started Round Square, like Afshin said, it was about we can provide you with the best 4 walls and we can compete with the market on granite countertops and stainless steel appliances, and we can all talk about what we do inside the home. But so much of our lives transpire outside of our home. And so for me, it was always about, well, how do we support the communities that we're in locally, in a localized manner? And so we have small businesses, which are easy, right? You have all these businesses that are here to service the people within those communities. And so I know that eventually they want my customers to be their customers. And the inverse is also true. I want their customers to be my customers. And so, I actually was just like an avid fan of these businesses. Like we would go into Village Ice Cream once a week. So like you could tell, I eat lots of ice cream and, coffee as well. Like I started drinking coffee and I would just have conversations. And so at one point I just basically went and asked, so Billy is the owner of Village Ice Cream. Sebastian is the owner of Phil and Seb Coffee. So I actually asked Billy first and he said, no, I don't see the value. Like, why would I promote a developer? And I'm like, no, I'm not asking you to promote my business. What I'm asking is, how do I like get my customers to experience your brand within its full experience? Like, let me help you with your customer acquisition costs. Like, let me get experiences from my customers to become your customers. And so he said no. And I said, okay. So I went and talked to Seb and Seb was like, oh, well, I kind of like that idea. So like, you're building all of these places and you're going to put my coffee in your home. So when they move in, they're going to see my coffee and then we're going to give them, I'm going to pay the cost to bring them into the coffee shop. And that's kind of the synergy. And so when Seb said yes, I came back to Billy. I said, listen, Billy, we're doing this with Seb. My intent is not to really cannibalize, it's to help you grow your business. And I think that is the epitome of a partnership. It's like, how do we not compromise your value and your brands and what you stand for and show you we're here to support you? And inversely, like, I'm not asking for anything, but they end up being champions of our brand. And that's what I think happened. And so, today we're sitting inside of a space that culminated from 4 years ago on a partnership where I just said, let me give my customers ice cream on my behalf from you with a bit of a discount, and let's just see where that goes. And so today, to me, this is where that goes. So you have Village Ice Cream, Phil and Sebastian's, Una Pizza, we're all a part of our partner program. And now, all our tenants in a building that we built. And hands down, selfishly, I think this is going to be one of the most active buildings from a pedestrian human collision perspective in all of Calgary. Like I can't think of a better main floor tenant lineup, and I would have that conversation with anyone who tries. So to me, that's kind of how this comes together. And when I had a conversation with Billy, I said, Billy, the reason why I want you here is because you drive human connection. That's it. Like there is nobody from a per foot traffic perspective in the summertime that can compete with an ice cream shop. Yeah. So you think about like, you envision in the summertime people colliding, kids having fun, hanging out on the hill, hanging out on the park. Like for a community, an ice cream shop can change everything.
That's right.
And so that's what really excited me. And I think when I said that to Billy, like he understood that this was more than just like a business transaction. It was like core value alignment for the future. How do you find these strategic partnerships as a way to grow both businesses? We're not competitors by any means, but we share the same kind of core values and we're actually hitting the same target every day.
Even though it may be an out-of-pocket expense now, but the long-term game is that you're going to create that community that will keep you part of it. That's a move that I think social media has done, but I don't think businesses have done within their communities to build that. And that's an amazing piece. You've talked about your other business here, the technology side. We talked about it outside when we were chatting. To go from building homes and I'm going to say building a community to going into helping renters, that's a big change of the actual business. But it's a tech startup, which sounds very interesting and sexy in today's term.
Yeah.
Tell me what got you into that business.
Yeah, so I would start by saying it's not sexy and it's hard as fuck. And mostly because my craft, I've spent the last 15 years, 20 years with Afshin understanding real estate. Like I'm not even a finance guy and I'm starting to understand what a cap rate is, what an IRR is, what investor, because it drives our business. But when I met these guys roughly a year ago, former execs from Skip the Dishes scaled a company from, nothing to worth 2.3 billion. And so they had got to experience this rapid growth. And they got to see it without, being owners. So kind of almost on the outside a little bit because they weren't at stake, but were inside. And so they got to understand what were the things they liked about the business, what were the things they couldn't, and how could they leverage the skills that they had built. And so I had met Miles Shedden, who's one of my co-founders. He's also the CEO of Chroma. And we really talked about, understanding real estate is riddled with operational efficiencies. It's not super tech savvy because it hasn't had to be. Historically, when you have a good portfolio and you just manage it, and even if you don't manage it very well, it continues to grow because you have this reoccurring asset that incurs in value, you reinvest money in. So we've seen tremendous growth from guys who've been able to hold their portfolio assets. But anyways, riddled with inefficiencies, but trying to convince these guys about where the future is. So you can kind of understand that challenge. You have $1 billion portfolio. We know you've done great. We think that change is on the horizon. Can you see the change with us? And most of these guys are like, well, what change are you even talking about? Because I'm here, I've been doing this. And so there is guys out there that see the change, that understand innovation and technology is coming. And so our goal is to partner with them and understand. Like, so, you know, when I talk to you about renter benefits, the reason why that's really interesting to me is because we started to engage with a bunch of different people who were tenants, whether, you know, in a commercial setting or a residential setting. Like where we started our journey was you get 4 walls. And I think that's what's changing. The demand of the new day renter is not going to be concerned about just the 4 walls that you provide him.
That's right.
They're going to be concerned about what support systems are in place for me outside of this 4 walls. And so that's what I was really excited about Chrome, about taking my experiences here, trying to apply it to tech. But I would say, you know, I'm like the rookie. I'm the oldest guy on the team, but I'm also like the guy that has to learn the most. And so that's been probably the biggest challenge, but also the most exciting for me, because it's like you're forced to be put in this position where you learn how to communicate better, how to iterate better, how to really connect better. And so I'm super excited about it, but it felt like a natural kind of, you know, place that we were going. And Afshin will tell you, like, I was always the one with Round Square that was focused on innovation and excited about doing crazy shit that oftentimes didn't make any sense. But it's always what kind of sparked my interest.
Throughout this interview, what you might have noticed is that when they start talking about the past and how things started, it was the tone was lower. They're like, yeah, this has just happened. Heartache, you know, problems, issues have come up. But when they start talking about what their passion is today, the tone goes up. You guys start moving. You guys start getting excited, which is fantastic. This is the juice. I call it the 5-hour energy drink that you have as an entrepreneur, that you keep on building and rebuilding yourselves, which is fantastic. I've had married couples on this show. I've had new entrepreneurs who've taken over the reins from their parents and their parents' business, but I haven't had 2 brothers on the show. How is it that 2 brothers can work in a way that you guys do? What's the secret sauce on that one?
You know, I think it was the motivation that started us from where we came from the past, and how our parents taught us that, hey, listen, you know, this is new. Go figure it out. The benefit of having your own brother there is sometimes a curse and a gift as well, right? Because we're hustlers and we're both going to go get it. And you can't put a problem in front of us and say, hey, we're done. What are we going to do about it? It's like, well, no, we're not. You know, you go do this, we'll figure it out. I'll do this, we'll figure that path out. I think that the greatest strength about it all is we were able to grow together. And now we know what we're both best at and where we need support. And it wasn't easy. Of course it's not easy. And the challenge is we become, I think, both visionaries in our own path. You know, the fact is we bump heads all the time, but I think that's our greatest strength. A lot of success, or the measure of success, is based on how well you've done in business. For me, I take it the other way. I think success should be measured as how you got out of the challenges you've had in life. I say to people, if you haven't been through a bankruptcy, or if you haven't went through a partner problem, or if you haven't went through a business problem, we might not be a fit, because shit goes wrong all of the time. And we need the path and we need the space to kind of use our experience to get through that. You know, I look at COVID, for example, let's take that. And hey, listen, let's not mishear what I'm saying. It's challenging. However, I think it's kind of the big reset button that we've all got to take a little bit of a pause, which has been very tough on businesses and individually and mentally, for sure. I think it's brought us closer to the people we have, as well as it's given us the time to really dive deep in our business and how we move forward. And I think we've now decided together and work together and said, hey, this is where we're really great at. So how do we expose that even more? But as well, the difficult side is like, we both are like, oh, we can do it, we don't need a team. Now becoming as big as we are and as large as we are in the buildings we're dealing with and the people and the politics, we're like, holy shit, right? It can't be about us anymore. We got to kind of step aside and let a team really support us on the stuff we're not great at.
Al, you're the younger brother. And so when Big Brother tells you this is what we want to do, how is that dynamic? Because I think when we start to see the division of labor, you take care of certain things, Afshin will take care of certain things, but Afshin says, no, we're going to do it this way. I'm the big brother, you got to listen to me. I can only imagine with my older sister, she'd probably pull rank on me all the time. How does that work for the two of you?
Yeah, I don't think it was ever rank, but it was probably just accustomed to like growing up, right? Like as kids, like you grew up with this mindset that I'm younger, and I think as I got older, the challenge for me was like proving to myself even that I had the ability to make those calls or those decisions, and really doing the work to show why these decisions were the right decisions. And I think, for a long part, I kind of played victim and said that this is the reason that we're not doing it is because you just think you're older than me, and you learn that that's not it at all. You really have to show, what are your core attributes? What are you good at? And like Afshin said, we kind of were able to really identify those things and see where each of us had success. It's probably not for everybody. So, people here are like, oh shit, I'm gonna go do this with my brother. It's like, the reason why it worked for us is because, we were lucky enough, I kind of look at it as lucky enough to come from nothing. Like our parents had nothing. And so when you have nothing to lose. So you put it on the line every single day. And I don't think I've ever shaken that mentality. Like people are like, oh, you have lots to lose now. It's like, no, man, because I've already seen what it's like to really not have a lot. And so I'm willing to put it on the line every single day. And we both have that same DNA. And so you come from this place where you know each other quite intimately, that, he has my back. And so we're not worried about the trust, even though we should be in a typical partnership. Like, what are your partners doing? Is there accountability? And that's what I'm learning with my new team is like, you have to have those things because there is no blind trust. Yeah. And you need to kind of have those documents. But for us, it was like, no, I know that you have my best interest and I have your best interest. And with that comes sacrifices, right? Because we work all the time. We talk all the time, but it's all about work. We're not talking about the game, or we're not having a beer every day. It's about like, what about this? What about this? And people will be like, oh man, that must be really tough. It's like, no, because the reality is like, we love it. Yeah. And we're grateful for being given the opportunity. So even when it's bad, and I mean, like, this, like, it's bad. Like it's bad all the time. Like, this is the ebb and flows of business. It always appears to be great, but that's not the way it is. And so what makes it great is the ability to learn from those challenges and to kind of understand how we can improve and still have the opportunity to be here the next day to do that. And so that's kind of what I would say has been super great for me, is kind of seeing what he's great at, what I'm great at, and how do I support that greatness.
You look at all the businesses that are out there and what you've gone through in the 20 plus years. Give our viewers 3 tips of advice for business owners today.
For me, I think it's having some type of mentorship coach relationships. I think about like Tiger Woods, right? For example, he has a swing coach, a strength coach, a psychologist, and it's so important. We are athletes in our own craft. So I think having a coach, and if you can't, it's just someone who's been in business. So just a group, right? Yeah. Number 2 is the team. Al and I tried to do this for a long time by ourselves, and it's taken toll on us, right? And now understanding to build that executive team or leadership team or your internal team is very important. And I think the last thing is, we love to support so many people, right? We need support as much as everyone else does. So accepting that support is very important as a business entrepreneur.
Al, top 3 tips.
Yeah, it's funny. I've watched some of your clips and I've seen guys talk about like, entrepreneurship isn't for everybody, or I've heard things like, it's in your DNA. To me, that's bullshit. I call bullshit on that. I feel like each and every one of us has an opportunity to be great. So it's like, find your greatness. And that doesn't mean like go out and do what you love. That means learn to love what you do. And that's what I think for me was really key for me in my career, is like, I love fashion, I love sneakers, I love looking up on that shit. But I realized how to apply the things that I love into my business, which changed everything. It changed the way that you perceive things. And so I think there's a really good opportunity for people to learn to love what you do and leverage that. And I believe everybody has the opportunity to be a great entrepreneur. And on that similar note, reading David and Goliath and this idea that those who are less privileged have this ability to amass. And to me, the messaging in that is like exactly the same thing. It's like we all have this unannounced ability to be great. We just have to find our greatness. Yeah. So search for your greatness and leverage your weaknesses. It doesn't mean you have to come from nothing. You could come from the most amount of wealth possible and still be great. But it's identify your greatness and really search it out. And the third thing for me is like a team environment. We talk about sports and we talk about all these things. And like the one thing I'm starting to realize is like I am not great at a lot of things. And the only way to be great is to get people who are great at other things better than you. And although that's uncomfortable, like very uncomfortable when you're talking to someone on your team who understands something better than you or proposes something, you have to have the ability to attract that team But then even more importantly is listen to that team as you kind of go through this journey.
Al, Afshin, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, man. It was awesome. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching The Exchange. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment to join the conversation. See you next time. Thank you for watching. Hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on any new video on this channel. Also, feel free to follow me on social media at Faisal Karmali.